Moving on to Mr. Samir Zuberi. He's the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities, and the MP for Pierrefonds since 2019. He serves on the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development and chairs its Subcommittee on International Human Rights. He's worked on various parliamentary committees and was involved in education, including teaching English in Kuwait. After law school, Mr. Zuberi joined McGill University's Faculty of Medicine as a Diversity and Engagement Officer and served in the Canadian Army Reserve for 5 years. He advocates for minority rights, climate change action, diversity, inclusion, and language rights in Quebec. Mr. Zuberi holds a BA in mathematics from Concordia University and a law degree from UQAM, where he received the Juanita Westmoreland Traoré Scholarship for Social Engagement. Mr. Zuberi, thanks for joining us today.
It's great to see everyone here, and it's something to speak after Alex also, Alex Neve. Once upon a time, I used to watch Alex work because Alex was Secretary General of Amnesty International. And I was involved in human rights, a more junior human rights organization. We used to work on the same files back in the day. And Alex was always a luminary, has always been and still is a luminary within the field of human rights. And how Alex started with being mindful. We are all here gathered because we care deeply about human rights, and we are learning in different ways, from speakers, maybe through personal studies, maybe through personal experiences. We're all learning. But I was learning when I met Alex. I was a practitioner, and I was also learning. Alex mentioned one key thing which is important to be mindful of while struggling for human rights, which is being mindful about security concerns too. Why? Because this world is interconnected and things do work together. And while advocating clearly and forcefully for human rights, we need to have a cognizance and awareness of the other side of the coin in order to effectively advocate for human rights and to see them fulsomely realized within our world. I'm here today to talk a bit about something that I'm sure many others could talk about, which is just a path, one path of many, my personal path, which is the path of someone who started, as so many of us, within spaces like this in the university sector. And I continued on to work in the civil society human rights organizations, albeit junior to Amnesty. And now till today, where I'm a member of parliament in the Liberal Party. And some may ask, how is someone who started off in the grassroots, continued within civil society, how can one be authentically who they are within a party, a big tent party, and the center? So I'll hopefully kind of thread those needles. And part of the reason why I'm in where I am today, in the space where I am today, is because I met somebody about, I think it's about 15 years ago now. His name was Warren Almond. He was a former Attorney General in Canada. And he was clear on the human rights issues. And this was in retirement, so I didn't know him while he was in the midst of his profession. But I knew him after he had gone out of his profession. And he was a board member of a group that is still active till today. This group has evolved and changed over time, but he was a board member of CJPME, which is focused on the Middle East. And I asked myself, how was a Pierre Elliott Trudeau Liberal, cabinet minister, attorney general, involved on the issue of the Middle East, and at that time specifically around Palestine and Israel? And that, Warren, the path that I've been on, different people have helped me to thread the needle that I'm still threading till now. So while at university, I was, like the organizers of this event, organizing events, sometimes rallies, which are all petitions, which are all effective democratic tools, important and necessary to help create a societal conversation and social change. I was in Concordia over 20 years ago. I was an undergrad back then. And there was an effervescent conversation around many different issues. Back then, there was a war in Iraq, and it was unknown at the time if Canada would get involved in the war. We ended up not getting involved, but it was unknown if we would. There was a robust conversation around the Middle East, in particular Palestinian human rights. And we fast forward to today, and some of these conversations are still ongoing. The same conversations that we've been having decade after decade. What I realized throughout the years, and some things that I think that we are all committed to, which is to make our world a better place, right? I'd like to believe that all of us, both here and paying attention, maybe through Zoom or through YouTube, whatever media that you're using, are committed to making our world a better place for everyone in our human family. We have so many different people in our human family from different cultures, backgrounds, faith traditions. But we hope goodness for every person, each and every person. And we hope to make our society better. And standing on the principles that Alex outlined and that others have outlined. And there are many different ways in which one can do this. One can do this through organizing events such as this. One can do it within civil society organizations, some of them of great stature, like Amnesty. One can do it through legal studies, or within government. There are many different ways in which one can do this. Each and every one is different. The norms and rules around each and every one is different. But they all tend towards the same goal of making our world a better place. So as was mentioned in the introduction around my biography, today I'm the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister who is responsible for diversity, inclusion, and persons with disabilities. Diversity is a broad concept. It mostly touches upon cultural communities, but is a broad concept that is beyond that. Now, in terms of other things that I've done over the last 4 years while in Parliament, I've focused my work more on the international human rights space, the foreign affairs space, and diversity. This is where the bulk of my work over the last 4 years has been. This also picks up upon the work that I've done previous to that started in the early 2000s. And why did I focus on that? A number of reasons. One, since elementary, I've been basically doing diplomatic relations. I'm born here in Canada, but you gotta sometimes explain who you are, your background, etc. Good faith, curious questions, but still people ask, and these questions need to be answered. I spent the early 2000s answering a question that was asked time and again, the question around terrorism, and I continuously said that terrorism has nothing to do with a faith, and that's categorically rejected. That took about 10 years for society to really hear it. And as the PM says, he says that you gotta repeat things. Sometimes they only seep in at the point where you feel like you almost want to vomit, right? Because you've said it so much, and only then that it seeps in. So when it came to the question of Muslims and terrorism, after 2001, it took about 10 years for it to seep in fully, squarely. That was the issue I worked on for a long time. But fast forward to 2019, when I got elected, I was looking for an issue that was focused upon, you could say. An issue that needed attention, an issue that also I could move with the idea that we must get success if you're going to put energy behind something. Otherwise, it's energy that's not well spent. You want to kind of get a result. So I entered a scene where I saw the opposition benches speaking to the issue of the Uyghur, and my own party, I like to believe, and I do believe, its DNA stands for the rules-based order, for international law fundamentally, for charter values, which are values for Canadians and any individual on Canadian soil, the charter values that include legal protections, the respect of diversity, respect of many different freedoms that we enjoy, expression, association, which includes protest, and religious freedoms. This is the DNA of the party I belong to today. And there are other parties, progressive parties, that I said would hopefully be in agreement with the issue that I was intending on working upon. And after careful consideration, I chose to focus my attentions on the issue of the Uyghur. And why was that? I was sitting in a subcommittee of international human rights, and we had an in-depth study on the Uyghur. And you know, being in the space that I'm in, I'm meeting individuals who are coming from different organizations, backgrounds, advocates from different spaces. And so often people hope and expect that one meeting will move the situation. One meeting can change the dial completely. What I say, and what I used to experientially do without knowing, but what I say today is that victories, it's rare to get a total victory on any issue. Oftentimes you'll win on elements of an issue. Savor those mini wins because they are important. They sustain somebody who is involved in long-term activism and social change. The positive mini wins. Savor those wins on the elements and know that you can continue to move ahead towards a total victory, but it takes time and energy. And it depends on you and a handful of people potentially, or a society, to call for that change, right? But that energy has to be continuous and sustained for it to happen. There are so many concerns and so many things happening that it's hard for us to focus, but it's absolutely necessary to get those wins that we want. So I heard the testimony of one lady in the study at the Subcommittee of International Human Rights, and it was kind of interesting because I was a new parliamentarian. I didn't really know exactly how to ask the question. I'm still learning, but I didn't really know. It was only a few months in, 3-4 months in max, before COVID. And we were actually, it was during, before COVID. Lady came in by Zoom, but I believe it was before COVID. And don't quote my memory, but it was within the first year. And a colleague of mine asked if she could take about 2-3 minutes that I had left. I had exhausted the questioning. She took about 2-3 minutes. And my colleague, who was more experienced, and particularly with women who have gone through unspeakable crimes, she asked and knew how to ask the question. And from her ability to ask the question came the evidence, and a story that has kept me up for nights and has been part of the reason why I advocated on the issue. She spoke about horrible crimes that she had witnessed from while in concentration camps, in forced labor camps, in the eastern part of China, where Uyghur people are living. She spoke of how a young lady was violated in front of 100-odd people. And if somebody would flinch, then they themselves would be abused, not necessarily violated, but abused physically. And that was what she witnessed. And in the 3 minutes that she spoke, that was such a powerful statement that it propelled me to continue working on the issue. Fast forward 2 years or so, I introduced a motion in the House of Commons to welcome 10,000 vulnerable Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities from third countries. That motion was unanimously accepted. For the first time, the government, the Prime Minister and Cabinet voted in favor of anything pertaining to the Uyghur. The PM did so unabashedly, and after we had the successful vote, he came and asked the leading advocates to take a photo together, saying, "We've done this to the entire world, we stand by it, this is our position." These victories are long sought after. They don't come easily. They take energy and continuous movement, continuous engagement, but they're worth it. Today, the immigration levels have been deposited as on November 1st, and they include a clear mention of the motion that we all unanimously accepted. That was far from an easy thing. We'll go into that in a later session, in the final session, the fourth session, where I'll be specifically speaking about the Uyghur. My main message is that human rights and advocating for the prevention of grave and serious crimes, including genocide, is a long path, and it's one that needs people who are committed and who are developing and learning and harnessing in their skills in order to advocate and push things forward. And so my call to you all is to consider committing to that, committing to making our world a better place, committing to do so deliberately, diligently, in an ongoing fashion, and reflecting on whether or not, and hopefully it potentially is, the call for you in this room. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time and attention.